Hi everyone, my name is Patrick McGuire, CEO of the North Shore Realtors. In 2023, NSR is celebrating 100 years of the Greater Salem Association of Realtors. Each month we're producing a video chronicling a decade of the association's history, culminating at our annual meeting in October. Today we discuss 1994 to 2003.
There was a lot of changes happening in the boards of realtors. When I started, I think there were 22 boards in Massachusetts. And one by one, mergers were taking place. I just felt very strongly that Haverhill had made some real strides, and I didn't want to see them take a giant step backward. And I was hoping that we could initiate some conversations with neighboring boards. Salem was the most open to the idea and very really accommodating. I think they were sensitive to some of the concerns of the leadership and the membership of Greater Haverhill. And so the decision was made that we would actually wrap up the affairs of the Greater Haverhill Association at the end of '94. And I was just working for them from home during a transition period. And then Haverhill was just going to become part of the Greater Salem Association. The name change came along later. But then David King surprised us with his resignation, and I applied for the position. It wasn't part of the merger agreement, but it just so happened that I interviewed for the position and got it. And so anyway, that's how I ended up staying with my members and having a whole bunch of new members to serve. A lot of transition because this board had a lot of staff people that were had skills for running an MLS, but we were really a lot of what was triggering all the mergers was the creation of MLS PIN.
There was a lot of negotiations between the boards. It was owned by the boards, and it was put together 93, 94. And we had a lot of good people. It ran very, very well, but it still didn't do what we wanted to do and what we found out was effective. And we went into further negotiations, trust me, negotiations, heavy negotiations, between Bay State, which was the 12 boards, and Boston, which was the 1 board. The ultimate angle was to try to go toward a statewide, but we didn't make it. We couldn't get the pieces to all fall together. It's now owned by participants. When we sold stock, when it was put together, when we started it, we were told we weren't going to make it, which was encouraging. And we started with, when you took the Bay State and Boston together, we had 11,000 people using it. We started at $87 per quarter. It's still $87 per quarter, and this is 25 years later.
We fought hard. The realtors really fought hard to get continuing education. I think most realtors really wanted that because it really almost felt unprofessional that other industries had it and the real estate industry didn't. And we were quite happy when it came along. When I left, we had just started the school, and we were really pretty much, we had been offering a lot of courses. There were a lot of certifications that the boards were offering even before continuing ed came along. Prior to that, we were partnering with North Shore Community College, and we're trying to do some of the CEU classes with them. There were some changes in the administration at the college, and it just got a little bit mixed up, and we decided that maybe we should just try to do it ourselves because most of the people that taught for the college were all our realtors. So we just figured, why not just, make it in-house? And so we went through the process of creating that. many years ago, I don't know exactly what year it happened, the house in Ipswich was supposed to be torn down. And people in Ipswich fought it, and they managed to keep the house from, I think, I saw it on the news, people like laying in the street in front of the bulldozer, that kind of a story. And it wasn't a house that had been owned by rich people. And it was a house in Ipswich which has some of the oldest architecture in the country. And somehow the Smithsonian ended up with the house, and they had it in a warehouse somewhere. And we were notified by the National Association of Realtors that they were going to sponsor this Ipswich House project. So we were asked to get involved. So it didn't start with us, but we were the conduit locally to get the news out there. And it was a fun project. And if you have, for members, I hope that members who go to DC go and look at the exhibit. It's still there, and it's quite an interesting exhibit. We had a little bit of trouble as a committee. Fortunately, we had this person, Dottie Levesque, who is a local Ipswich person. You absolutely had to have an Ipswich town resident involved in this to make it go anywhere, because even though it's the North Shore Association of Realtors and you could cover, 41 towns, if you're not in their town, they don't really think you're them. And we were looked upon as these outsiders. Who are they coming in? People had forgotten about the Ipswich House because I think the Smithsonian had gotten it years before. And so anyway, we had a lot of fun as a committee, but, and I think it was Pat Marcotte was president at the time. And it was a wonderful committee, and we all were there for the grand opening. And the National Association did a great job with it. There's still a rock by the police station with our plaque on it. And that's where the Ipswich House used to be. The transition for realtors from the book to a computerized MLS, which is really what I was hired to help make happen in Haverhill, and which was a really big part of the years that I was with the realtors. It was an interesting challenge because in the beginning, we had a thing called a dumb terminal, and you hooked it up to the telephone receiver, and it was about the size of a tablet, but much thicker, and it printed with thermal paper. You've probably heard about this. The biggest challenge I had was getting male members to be seen typing.
And when I was in high school, I took a typing class. So I remember they brought me down a computer and I went at it, and she said to my secretary, "Wow, he's using both hands."
Not everybody had typing skills. And the terminal was pretty small. Now men can use this itsy bitsy little phone. But let me tell you, I actually had to show people privately because they did not want to be seen typing. And we would do learn 2 things this week, and the next week we'll go on to something else. But the transition from the book to that technology was not easy. And at the same time, people had cell phones in their car that were the size of a shoebox. So all the changes that were happening, there was the pager, there was Palm Pilots, there were Blackberries, there was people's phones kept getting smaller and smaller. People were lugging around pretty heavy laptops. So there was just an awful lot of this all going on in the 90s and the early 2000s. And I think without that part of it, you never would have seen Base Date MLS, MLS PIN, and all of these things evolve.
Salem is doing a great job with that, or North Shore, if you will. I still call it Salem. Great association.